Resident Evil is no stranger to monsters. From zombies to lickers to the most grotesque mutations, monsters are the immediate danger of the games. But the worst monster is also the most unassuming and hidden in the background. This monster is known as Dr. James Marcus. Born in 1918, not much is known about James Marcus until his graduation from a university in 1939, where he would become friends with Edward Ashford and Oswell Spencer, and even come to share their views on eugenics and human evolution. Not only that, but Marcus shared in Spencer's fascination with Natural History Conspectus, and would fixate on the section about the Ndapaya, a West African tribe that held a ritual where a tribe member would consume a flower and the survivors would be granted superhuman abilities. And with the new field of virology, Marcus has an idea. The superhuman abilities were being caused by a mutagenic virus. So, in 1966, Marcus convinces Spencer to fund a trip to Africa in search of this flower. He would leave in October of that year and would bring along his protege, Brandon Bailey. Marcus and Bailey would be successful in their mission to find the Garden of the Sun and the Sonnentrep flowers it contained. And between the attacks from the Ndapaya tribe, they would be successful in isolating the virus that would be dubbed the progenitor virus. Marcus and Bailey would return in February of 1967 with progenitor cultures and seeds from the Sonnentrep flower. These seeds would bloom into flowers, but they would not produce the virus. Marcus believed this was due to the conditions in the area, and believed that it was only possible for the virus to thrive in the specific environment that the Garden of the Sun provides. But continued study would prove difficult, as the Swiss university that Marcus was studying at would ostracize him under allegations of falsifying research results. With his funding cut, Marcus would accept a deal from Spencer to fund his research, under the conditions that the research would be done at the Spencer estate, and the results would not be discussed outside of Marcus, Spencer, Ashford, and Bailey. Marcus would begin his research on bacteria by killing an E. coli cell with chlorine. Then the cell would be exposed to the progenitor virus. This dead cell would revive and mutate and then be reproduced. Upon this discovery, Spencer would approach Marcus and Ashford in March of 1967 with the idea for Umbrella Pharmaceuticals for extra funding. With little interest in business, but excited for the research opportunity, Marcus would agree. Research would continue smoothly until the progenitor cultures began to dwindle in the spring of 1968. So Marcus makes plans to return to Africa for more samples, but is stopped by Spencer, who convinces him to head the Umbrella Executive Training School and allow Bailey to return to Africa with a mercenary group to secure the Garden of the Sun. Although Marcus did not like a university environment, he could not deny that a proper lab would suit his research better than a field lab. But, uninterested in his school duties, Marcus would leave the university to his assistant director while he worked in the lab. By September of 1968, a steady supply of the progenitor cultures began coming in for research. Spencer handled the business portion of Umbrella and left research to Marcus and Ashford. They soon discovered that the progenitor virus had a near 100% fatality rate in humans. With this discovery, Spencer would enter into a contract with the US government to make biological weapons, and the production of mutant strains would begin. This contract would lead to the production of the tyrant virus, or better known as the T-virus. Spencer, Marcus, and Ashford would all work individually on the T-virus to make their own advances, though Ashford would soon die in a lab accident orchestrated by Spencer, where he was exposed to a primitive strain of the virus. For the next 10 years, Marcus would make slow and steady progress in his research, only taking pause to note two exceptional students that began studying at the training school in 1977, Albert Wesker and William Birkin. Believing them to be the best examples of what he was looking for, Marcus would actually reach out to his assistant director to help push William and Albert, actually encouraging a rivalry between them and personally helping with their education. In September of 1977, Marcus would also have a breakthrough. By splicing leech DNA into the virus, Marcus would successfully create a strain that would be useful for military purposes, and upon reporting his findings to the Umbrella Board in 1978, would continue his tests on animal subjects, using anything from insects and arachnids to frogs, dogs, and primates. But the animal experiments could not satiate his desire to experiment on humans. Many students from here on would become unwilling test subjects, being tricked into touching the infected leeches, These students would be left to mutate in their beds, leaving behind a bloody mess. The mutated students would be collected and brought to basement floor 1. Here, these students would be chained to the walls, tied to iron chairs, some of which were electric, drowned in cages by a dunking crane, or impaled by iron maidens. Some labs even had gas chambers. But the deranged tests would not stop there. Marcus had an operation room where he would perform vivisections and remove organs to be preserved in fluids in an auxiliary research room, all just to test their survivability. And although it's possible that some students were used as test subjects prior to this, there is no record of this happening. Marcus continued on his descent into madness, losing all interest in anything other than the results of his research, to the point he was lazily disposing of the bodies of his deceased subjects, stuffing them into body bags and leaving them laying around in the morgue, and dumping some bodies in the nearby river channel leading to a water treatment plant. Some bodies were even left to rot within the gas chambers as Marcus continued his work. Other than the atrocities committed within the labs, Marcus also had the animal BOWs held in cages on basement floor 3 of the facility, and possibly used them to train the new anti-BOW unit of the Umbrella Security Service. From the formation of Umbrella, Spencer and Marcus had continued to grow even more suspicious of one another, especially so after the death of Ashford. So, right after the end of the 77 to 78 school year, Spencer ordered the training facility closed. Albert Wesker and William Birkin would be moved to the nearby Arclay facility. Marcus decides to remain in the lab to continue his research, planning to present the results of his work to the Umbrella Board of Executives to gain their favor over Spencer. Over the next 10 years, Marcus would continue to work alone in the lab. And although Marcus would finally have everything he needed to present to the board, it was not soon enough. In 1988, the Umbrella Security Service arrived at Marcus's lab to assassinate him on the orders of Spencer. Wesker and Birkin came along and collected Marcus's research to bolster their own. Then, Marcus and any of his unwanted test subjects would be dumped into the nearby river channel. After his death, all records of Marcus were removed from Umbrella's files except for one, stating that Marcus was dismissed early on, effectively removing him from the majority of the company's history. But after 10 years, Marcus's Queen Leech was able to absorb his DNA and build itself up, and in 1998 would set events in motion that would lead to the beginning of Resident Evil 0. Leading the development of the destructive T-Virus, Marcus was a brilliant scientist turned essentially serial killer. The murders and torture committed by Marcus make him one of, if not the worst, monster within Resident Evil.